Hey everybody, we are covering 5 Diablo 4 tips, build guide mistakes you don't want to make. Now, the new season is just around the corner, and that's when a ton of people are going to follow build guides to either test out the new meta or try a build they've always wanted to. And so I wanted to give you these mistakes before you jump in so you don't make them and you can have a way more enjoyable time and get to those crazy power levels. So the first mistake people make is just choosing something because it's the meta. That is a big mistake unless that's all you're looking for. If you're just looking for pure power and you do not care about gameplay, you don't care about what classes are most enjoyable for you, then that will work for you. But for most people, there is going to be a particular playstyle that just feels good, that it feels like the right one for you. It's going to be worth the time that you spend to get this class to the right place. So when I'm looking at it, I'm checking, do I just want the most powerful? Do I want a tried and true playthrough? Do I want something that I've just enjoyed time and time again that I know is going to give me a good experience? Or do I want to try something that's going to challenge me, or it's just new, it's something that I haven't done before? These are going to give you a great ability to just enjoy the hell out of your playthrough. Now, do one extra thing and just check how the actual playstyle looks. If you can get video footage of how the build looks when it comes together, that's one of the fastest ways I've noticed to go, hey, I would like that. Let's go ahead and run with it. So the next mistake is not understanding what I call the minimum viable build. For whatever build you're looking at, there is a minimum requirement of things that have to be in place before this build comes online. In some cases, that's almost immediate at the beginning of the game, and you can even level with it. For other builds, it's going to be things that either unlock based on your level or on what world tier you're in. Some things even needing you to fight certain bosses in order to ever see them. This either requires you to have a separate build. A lot of time people do use separate builds for leveling, and then they'll switch over in end game when it finally matters and they can get the pieces they need. But knowing what those are, whether it's a armor piece, a weapon, or an aspect that you simply don't have yet, or a skill or a paragon board point, whatever it is, knowing what that is and when that's likely to come online for most players can tell you when your build is actually going to be playable. So the next big mistake that people are making is not understanding how the different abilities and things play together. That there is a stacking order, or there's a priority that you have to trigger this before this thing happens. Not understanding the mechanics of the build can make it very challenging to make your build stronger, to know what to do when you start dying, just know how to get enough resources that you need. A lot of times the builds are built specifically that you can do certain things. Like for a barbarian, you would lay down certain shouts. You do the shouts, they have certain effects. And many times it's 2 or 3 of them. And knowing what those do and knowing what order and when they have to be on is the difference between getting yourself one-shotted or just obliterating everything in your path. And so really understanding that, like if you look at rogues, like how they use their traps, what different effects that they can apply to their shots are going to do the maximum amount of damage. You know, if you don't understand how all the pieces play together, you can find yourself just kind of spamming buttons randomly and not knowing why you suddenly die, not knowing why you can't clear that boss very well. And so really understanding what order and sequence, what sets up getting that maximum amount of damage. When we look at like all these great videos where people are one-shotting bosses and you're like, oh, that's crazy. How they do it is usually knowing the mechanics so well that they layer them up and then they hit that damage. And when they do that right, they can obliterate bosses like they're nothing. So yet another thing that people commonly make a mistake on is thinking that whatever build they build is a single build and that's it. There is no really understanding that there is different activities in end game. And if you want to be great at them, there is actual changes you're gonna have to make in your build. And yes, it can be troublesome trying to get multiple pieces or switching out aspects depending on what you're doing. You know, I do spend a lot of time when I'm in end game, I think about what am I doing for a while? You know, like, am I doing farming? Am I bossing? Am I looking to push the pit as far as I can? Whatever the thing I'm doing, I pay attention to that and I will make adjustments to my build. And at least I won't be switching all the time. So I'm not switching stuff out constantly. I'll be able to run that for a while and get what I need out of it. Now, there's 3 major end game scenarios that you come across in Diablo, and that is going to be farming. So just getting a lot of materials, getting experience possibly if you're not leveled to 100 yet, or 60 when they finally switch it to that. But that is something that is about moving fast and clearing large mobs of enemies fast and efficiently without worry. Usually you're doing enough damage, you just need things that also do area of effect, and that way you are clearing on top of whatever you're doing. So then there is bossing. That is about single point damage, about stacking as many skills into a thing to maximize it, to basically clip down that boss rapidly before they have a chance to actually put you in danger. Then there is just the pushing, and that's usually any of the end game mechanics where you're doing a little bit of mob clearing and then you're doing a boss. You kind of have to have a well-rounded overall character that does that, but is stronger, getting stronger and stronger, building more and more defense, and that will get you the clear on the 3 different types. So the next mistake people make, and it actually steals from their own enjoyment of the game, is this expectation that somehow they're going to watch a single video and they're going to get everything they need. You have to remember, a lot of the people that are like creating builds, the theory crafters, they spend thousands of hours doing this, you know, sometimes in just for one build. And so what they know, you know, they don't always remember. It's second nature to them. They spent so much time in it, they might forget to tell you in a video. But there's this like key mechanic that they just take for granted. And if you understand it, then everything comes together, or you'll skip that mistake if you get stuck in that place. And a lot of people will just have this expectation that that should be all in that one video. And if it's not, it's a problem. And they leave tons of comments about how this doesn't work and it's crap and you know, nothing will, you know, this is never going to come together. And what my recommendation is, if you're going through a build, understand these guys have put so much time. You are not going to get up to speed with everything they know. But if you want to master the game, if you want to be really good at it, you can do something that most people will not do. And that's just targeting one thing at a time. As you're playing the game, if you find, hey, I'd like to see how to do this more, or I'd like to clear better, or I'd like to do more damage, or I'd like more armor, or I'd like my resources not to run out like I saw in their video. Picking one thing of those and just digging in deep on that. Go watch that portion of the video. Go read that part of the guide, and only that. Just focus on that until you get a strong understanding. You will get a new love for the game and for the build, because you'll understand things you didn't see before. And this is where I think that, especially if you're playing season to season, you can get the most out of this game. Don't expect yourself to be one of the best theory crafters on the planet immediately. Start building up, learn little bits of it, and you'll find that you understand more and more about the game as a whole, and every build after that is going to get more enjoyable and easier to put together. So we are at the bonus that I wanted to give. I'm excited to talk to you guys about debugging. Wherever your build is, there is something you can do. I want to give you kind of my thinking. I am planning on doing a longer video on this. So after I go through this, if you guys just tell me in the comments, hey, that is definitely something I want. It's here's my questions, here's my problems. I would be glad to have that, because then I can make a better video for you. So how I think about it comes down to 3 major things. For most ARPGs, these are going to be them. First, am I doing enough damage? And that's either area or bosses. Do I have enough defense? And do I have enough resource generation? Usually, if you have those things, your build should do at least enough to keep clearing and getting better and better pieces. So for Diablo in particular, when I'm looking at damage, I'm really trying to pay attention to, well, what type of problem do I have? Is my damage problem that I'm not clearing mobs, or that I'm not clearing bosses? One is area damage, and one is going to be single point damage. They are different issues. And some of it might just be getting more damage on your weapon. Others might be getting different aspects in place, or getting your Paragon points into places where it actually helps to like carry out wider range of damage. And so paying attention to that, if you're not clearing large mobs very quickly, you may just not have anything that clears outside of a single target. And that can be very stressful for farming. Next, when we're looking at defense, again, for Diablo, there is 2 things that we're going to primarily look at. There is some crazy builds that use like unique elements to keep your defense up all the time, shouts and different like mechanics and abilities and all kinds of things, and lowering cooldown. But for the most part, for most problems in defense, you are facing an armor issue, which is not giving you enough of the damage reduction, or you're facing a resistance issue where you are actually very vulnerable to fire, lightning, ice, shadow, whatever it is, damage, specialized damage type. So even though you're protected everywhere else, you get hit by this, you're done. You can get one shot easily. A lot of people saw that with the Maiden last season, where she was one-shotting with a ring of fire. That's a lot of resistance issues. That's even hard when you are max resist. So those are the 2 things you're going to look out for. Lastly, and this is probably one of the most annoying ones, and it's because it's usually met with a stupid voiceover that says like, out of resource, I'm out of mana, I'm out of mana. And it gets really annoying, because if you're hearing it too much, it's all you hear. But resources are going to be those things, because no resources, no abilities, and you're just dead in the water on both. And sometimes there is builds where if you're not attacking, you're also not getting defense. And so just resources can screech everything to a halt, and you want to know how to maximize those. So for the resource problem in particular, there is some easy solves that they didn't have before, but tempering has allowed us to kind of do quick adds. Maybe it's not the perfect temper for later as you get your build even stronger, But early on, if you are having problems with resources, you can throw on a temper that gets you more resources that you need. Now, the second thing, and I recommend for a lot of people, slow down your spamming pace. So instead of hitting as fast as you can, just seeing your mana drain, actually slow it down to a pace that your mana refill or regeneration is fast enough to make up for the difference. If you can get that right pace, I've noticed how many times I kind of found a build, and if I just slowed it down like a half second between the next attack, I have infinite mana. I have a very smooth gameplay. I'm never finding myself out of mana and then running to, hide from monsters because I can't even attack them if I wanted to. So those are going to help you a ton. Another thing that can help you a lot is also knowing some of the settings that you can turn off. I actually do a video right here where I go through the settings I would recommend turning off for most players and exactly what they do.